I hope we're living in a simulation, man. I would love for that to be the answer. Like I think a lot of people likely think about or search for an answer. What's, what is all this? Where are we? What are we doing here? So I think it would be like a really nice explanation that we live in some sort of computer, or I don't even know if it would be a computer, but maybe some sort of like matrix. Does the matrix technically live inside a computer? Yeah. It like the
Yeah.
movie, they made.
Yeah.
It's a computer, right?
Yeah,
Like
the humans are plugged into the Matrix, which is a simulation that's run on computers.
right.
So it's
Yeah,
like a
that'd be
game
dope.
engine.
One compelling argument that I've heard was the Big Bang, for example, could have been the beginning of the simulation. Like the Big Bang could have occurred and, like in a simulation type of environment. And if that's the case, then we're here to make the next simulation. And if we achieve being able to make another simulation, then how many simulations have been done to get us to this point? It could be billions. Like we could be living inside a simulation that's living inside of another simulation that's living inside of another simulation, and so on and so on and so on. And it could be infinite, right? If we
But
do eventually make a simulation, then that could be a good answer.
but who's running these simulations?
I just think it would be something that maybe we wouldn't really necessarily be able to understand, possibly, or
Oh,
it's just some sort of other life form that has gotten technologically advanced, like sufficiently technologically advanced, that they were able to create some sort of simulation. And who knows if they're actually plugging into the simulation or not. Like these aliens and UFO sightings that we're seeing, maybe those are just like aliens and UFOs from the simulation that created this simulation. And they're coming in to like, yo, don't fucking blow yourselves up because this simulation took us forever to design. Like you guys are going to fuck everything up. It took us forever to get here. You know what I mean? And they as well could be living in another simulation. So
do you think that they know that if they are living in a simulation, do you think they can know they're living in a simulation?
it's quite possible that they don't, but I think they would be naive to think that they're not because they themselves have created a simulation. Okay. Once we create a simulation, then they'll definitely have their answer because they'll be able to realize, wow, we created a simulation and then the simulation created its own simulation. Holy fuck. Maybe we're in a simulation too. Right? It would be, I mean, it wouldn't be a clear, but it would be
it's
a possibility.
Trippy. Absolutely. So is there a reason why you think that, or like, you said you think it would be dope. Like,
yeah.
Why would it be dope, do you think, for you?
So I could tell all these religious people to fuck off. Pissing me off, man. So I just tell Michaela, like, shut the fuck up. Jesus is dope, yes, but shut up already.
That is the number one reason you think it'd be dope to live in a simulation. I love that.
It's also like a nice like it's also like a nice answer. It's like, cool. All right, that's it. We're in a simulation. Dope. Now I want to know who's running the simulation. Let's look at the next.
All right, I'll play devil's advocate here. What if the religious people came back to you and were like, yeah, that's God?
I can't prove them wrong, and they can't prove me right. I mean, okay, here's the thing though. Like, if they're claiming that that's God, then they have the burden of having to prove it, right? Because I could say, well, I don't know, a teacup created the simulation. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing.
Yeah.
Like if they're claiming God did, I could claim fucking, all right, well, anything could have then. Prove it to me that God created the simulation.
And then they would struggle with that. So how would it change the way you live your life? Would it change anything if we were living in a simulation?
No, I would continue doing the exact same thing. I don't think it would even faze me. I would just, finally we have like an answer. Like we have one step in the direction because we're all curious about what the fuck's going on. So if that's it, then we'll be asking ourselves, okay, cool. We finally have an answer of some sort. Now let's start to investigate what's running the simulation then, right? And start putting those pieces together and then learn about that. Because I think humans are just naturally mad curious. But at this point, there are so many possibilities, and just narrowing it down to one, that it's a simulation, I think would just feel really satisfying in a way. At least for me, it would.
Might provide some certainty or some sort of like resolution to the unknown, so to speak.
Yeah. But if people prove to me that there's a God, then that's cool too. I'll accept that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I can understand. Like their version of God might be the people or the things that created the simulation, but then it might not just be one. It might be a bunch of things that contributed to creating it. So for me, like I don't think we live in a simulation. But if we were to be living in a simulation, it would change how I live ever so slightly. I feel like I might try and game the simulation a little bit more. Like I would try and find like, what is the simulation optimized for? Or like, but at the same time, it's kind of like we live in a universe where you can sort of, well, one useful strategy could be to think that it's like a video game anyway. So like, even if it isn't a simulation, sort of perceiving reality as if it was a simulation could also be a useful strategy. Like, you know, this is just this game or this simulation that I'm in. Like, why not make the most of it, so to speak?
Right. How do you reckon you could begin to understand how to game the simulation?
Try some shit, find out. No, like legit, you just have to try stuff. Like, or you could also look at like, you know, what sort of life or existence do you want to have? And then you could look at people that have, you know, done similar things or maybe done things that you'd like to do. And then look, okay, well, how did they go about getting that? You know, like one thing I think we can say about like the universe that we live in is that it rewards people that try stuff. It rewards people that try things, that do things, that you know, like novelty in that regard, like people that are trying to create new things or bring to life different visions or dreams or aspirations. You know, like it's hard to achieve those things if you're not willing to do stuff or try different things. So like it kind of rewards the brave and the explorers and the crazy to a degree. You know what I mean? Like you got to be sort of sufficiently crazy to try and do stuff that hasn't happened before or didn't exist before. I think we spoke about this previously about like, you know, inventions that have changed our the way we live our lives and technology in throughout life. It has been people are crazy. Like they have to be crazy to do that. So like the Wright brothers, you know, doing the planes and stuff, like, you know, back in the day, people would have thought that they were insane. Like, you guys are crazy. What are you trying to do? Like, you're trying to get this thing to fly? Like, what? Like, you can't do that. We don't have wings or we don't do this. You know what I mean? But then they did it. How did they do it? Well, they were sufficiently crazy enough to believe that it could happen. They tried a whole bunch of different ways to make it happen. And they finally, like, from exploring that possibility space, they found a path that worked. They found a path that got them to where they wanted to get to. Out of all the possible things that we could do, or different ways it could work, they found a way that did work for us. And then that changed the course of human history, you know, like, because now we have things that fly.
Okay, can you elaborate a little bit more why you're not convinced that we live in a simulation? Like, what sort of evidence would need to come forth in order for you to get on board with this idea a little bit more?
The reason I don't think we live in a simulation is because I don't think it explains, like, it doesn't provide enough. It doesn't have enough explanatory power, and it's not convincing to me. So if we lived in a simulation, okay, well then what created the simulation? Right? Yeah. If that's the way that it's meant, like if people think that we live in like a computer that was created by other beings or some other entity, and it's simulated us. So like, let's just say that it was God that created the simulation. I think that's one way you could interpret religious teachings is like God created the universe. Well, Therefore, you could make the argument, okay, well, we're just a simulation because God created us, right? So then, okay, well, who or what created God? And then, it's just kind of like this infinite recursiveness nesting. Well, something created him. Well, what created it? Well, something created it. Well, what created it? And you could just keep going with that. There doesn't seem to be sort of like I don't know, it's not as satisfying to me.
Yeah, I guess in a way that you're right. Like the creator of the simulation could be God, right? And then maybe another simulation created God. Or maybe God is a group of people. Maybe it's not just like one being. That's like the one thing that annoys me about religion. Like, by the way, like I'm open to it. I believe that there is a God of some sort, probably, right? But not necessarily how the books play it out to be. But what they always claim is that our God is the rightful God, and there's only one, right? So they disbelieve in all other religious gods, and they only accept one, right? And they're 100% confident that their God is the right one. And this is based on simply where you were born and indoctrination. Because if you were born in India, you'd be convinced that no, like these gods are the right ones. And then Christians believe, no, our God is the right one. So who's right? Right? I think both our parties are correct in a way. Both can be correct. But religious people can't accept that. They don't like that. That's like one thing that they're not unable to accept, is that there could be other possibilities. And I think that essentially is being more spiritual than they claim to be. If I'm willing to accept, Indian gods are dope, Christian gods dope, Muslim.
100%.
I think
completely
that's
agree with you. That is a way more holistic. That to me encompasses the essence of what it means to be religious in that sense.
Yeah. So there could be many gods, and those gods could have also been created by another simulation. Because that's a great question. What do religious people say about that? Who created God? What do they say? Because I'm not really certain.
Well, I don't think they go that far. I feel like it's a sufficient, like, there's levels to everything, and that the level that they've gone to with God is enough for them. Like, if they think that God created everything and that God exists, that's enough. They don't need to go any deeper. They can just accept that there, and then that allows them to go and live their life based on the teachings or whatever they want to believe, right? And I think that's broadly pretty useful for most people. But to me, it's not satisfying enough.